buying a home, it's such a huge milestone for so many people.
Absolutely. It's the classic American dream, right?
Exactly. And FHA loans, well, they've been a really key part of that for a lot of folks. Lower down payments, a bit more flexible on credit. They open doors.
They really do. They've historically been a pathway for many.
But there's a pretty significant change on the horizon that we really need to talk about today. We actually picked this up from the rethinkingre.com blog.
Oh, right. Don and Susie Karstedt's site. Rethinking Real Estate up in Lake Taps, Washington.
That's the one.
Yeah.
They seem really dialed into what's happening locally, and they flag this upcoming shift with FHA loans for non-U.S. citizens. It's vital info people need to know. You don't want surprises with this stuff.
No, definitely not. And Don and Susie are providing a really critical heads up here. So I think for this deep dive, what we should do is unpack what they've laid out on their blog.
Yeah, let's give some clarity. Figure out how these new rules might affect people listening, or maybe someone they know who's thinking about buying.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so based on what Don and Susie are reporting, let's just dive right in. What's the actual core change, the big news?
Right, the big one. The date everyone needs to circle is May 25th, 2025.
Okay, May 25th next year?
Exactly. According to Don and Susie's findings, that's when the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration, is putting a major policy update into effect. And the bottom line is, non-permanent residents won't be eligible for FHA-backed mortgages anymore.
Wow, okay. Non-permanent residents, that sounds like a big deal.
It is. It's a significant shift.
And Don and Susie pointed out, this isn't just about, someone maybe without authorization. We're talking about people who are here completely legally with valid work visas.
Precisely. That's a crucial point they make. They specifically mention folks with H-1B visas, often skilled workers in tech or specialized fields.
Yeah, very common.
And L-1 visas for people transferring within a company internationally. Also O-1 visas for those with, extraordinary ability.
Athletes, artists, scientists.
Exactly. These are all established legal ways for people to live and work here. But because they're technically non-permanent residents, Don and Susie are saying they won't meet the FHA criteria starting next May.
Huh. So, okay, besides those specific work visas, who else did Don and Susie say might be affected by this?
Well, their blog post also mentioned asylum seekers who haven't yet received their USCIS form I-94. That's the form usually issued when someone arrives, showing their immigration status. But the main takeaway Don and Susie emphasize is broader. Basically, if you're not a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder, this new rule is likely going to affect your ability to get an FHA loan.
And that's regardless of their job or their credit score, or even if they've been renting reliably for years.
Exactly. That's what's so striking. Don and Susie really highlight that this seems centered purely on immigration status, not the person's financial readiness to buy a home.
That really brings it home. And they had an example, didn't they, from their own work in Lake Taps, something that really illustrates the practical impact.
They did, yeah. It's quite a powerful story, actually. They mentioned a couple. They're helping, right now, Ukrainian refugees.
Oh, wow.
You have folks who had to flee the war. They've resettled here, started not one, but 2 small businesses.
Yeah.
They're currently renting a place through Don and Susie. And they were just starting to think about, maybe buying a home.
And that's exactly the kind of situation where FHA can be so helpful, right? As Don and Susie explain, it's tough for newcomers to build up that long U.S. financial history quickly.
Absolutely. The lower down payment is often crucial.
So the potential issue here, the consequence Don and Susie point out, is that under these new rules coming next year, this couple, or people in similar situations, they might get turned down for an FHA loan only because of their immigration status.
Not because they can't afford it or have bad credit, but just because they aren't permanent residents yet.
Precisely. It really, it puts a very human face on what this policy change could mean. Don and Susie did a good job showing that potential impact. Okay, so we've talked a lot about who's going to be affected, based on Don and Susie's insights. What about the other side? Who will still be eligible for FHA loans after May 25th, 2025?
Right. Good question. Don and Susie lay that out pretty clearly, too, on their blog. So first off, no surprises here. U.S. citizens.
Okay. Status quo for them.
Exactly. As long as they meet the usual income, credit, and other FHA requirements, nothing changes for U.S. citizens.
Makes sense. What about non-citizens, then?
Okay, so lawful permanent residents, that means people with green cards, they will still be eligible.
Ah, okay, so green card holders are fine.
They are. But Don and Susie stressed the documentation part. They absolutely need to provide valid proof of their status. That means their actual permanent resident card, the Form I-551.
Got it. The physical card.
Yes, and it has to be valid, not expired. Plus, they need to make sure that on the loan application itself, the URLA, the Uniform Residential Loan Application, they indicate permanent resident alien.
Okay, so attention to detail on the paperwork is crucial there. Any other groups still eligible according to Don and Susie?
Yes, there's one more specific group they mentioned. Citizens of certain Pacific Island nations.
Oh, interesting. Which ones?
Specifically, the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau.
Okay.
Citizens from those three nations will still be eligible for FHA loans. But again, documentation is key. They'll need to show official proof, like a passport or a national ID card, confirming their citizenship from one of those countries.
Right. So for those who do remain eligible, the green card holders and those Pacific Island citizens, what's the specific paperwork checklist Don and Susie advise having ready?
Okay, so drilling down on that. For green card holders, like we said, it's that valid, unexpired permanent resident card, Form I-551. Crucial. And getting that designation right on the URLA.
Check the box correctly.
Exactly. For the citizens of Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, or Palau, they'll need their passport or a national ID, something official that clearly states their citizenship.
This is really valuable, practical info Don and Susie are sharing. Okay, so thinking about our listeners, maybe someone listening is affected, or they know someone who will be. What kind of next steps or maybe alternatives do Don and Susie suggest on their blog?
Yeah, they offer some really solid, actionable advice. First, if you are in one of those eligible categories, green card holder, qualifying Pacific Islander, they say, basically, get your ducks in a row now.
Meaning?
Confirm your eligibility, double-check everything, and gather all that required documentation as soon as possible. Don't wait.
Good advice. Get organized early. What about for people who are likely to be ineligible come next May? Those on temporary visas, for instance.
For them, Don and Susie suggest exploring other financing avenues. The main one is conventional mortgage programs.
Okay, so non-FHA loans.
Right. Conventional loans might have different eligibility rules, different down payment requirements, maybe different credit standards, but they aren't subject to this specific FHA rule change, so that's definitely something to look into.
Makes sense. Any other loan types mentioned?
They also bring up portfolio loans. These are sometimes offered by smaller local banks or credit unions.
Ah, the ones the bank keeps on its own books.
Exactly. Because the lender keeps the loan instead of selling it, they sometimes have a bit more flexibility in their underwriting criteria. It's not guaranteed, but it's another potential option worth investigating, according to Don and Susie.
And didn't they also mention looking beyond just loans, like other types of help?
Yes, that's an important point they raised. They suggested looking into nonprofit organizations or maybe private initiatives that specifically aim to help refugee and immigrant homebuyers.
Resources specific to those communities.
Right. Don and Susie, working there in Lake Tapps, they probably have a good handle on local resources, but they advise people, wherever they are, to do some research, see what support might be available from community groups.
That's really helpful. There was also a piece of advice with a very specific timeline, wasn't there? Something Don and Susie stressed.
Oh, absolutely. Very time-sensitive advice. If you are currently eligible for an FHA loan under the current rules and you're actually ready to buy, like soon,
Yes.
Don and Susie strongly recommend trying your best to get the deal done, meaning close on the house before that May 25th, 2025 deadline hits.
Beat the clock, basically.
If you can, yes. Because after that date, if you fall into one of the newly ineligible categories, that FHA option disappears.
Wow. Okay. That adds some urgency for people on that boat. And the last big piece of advice they gave.
It really boils down to not going it alone. They emphasize getting expert help.
Makes sense. These rules sound complex.
They really can be. Don and Susie stress that navigating these changes, understanding the nuances, it can be overwhelming. So they strongly advise working with experienced professionals, both real estate agents like themselves, and especially knowledgeable mortgage lenders.
People who really understand these specific FHA rules and the upcoming changes.
Exactly. Lenders who are up to date and can guide buyers correctly. And they mentioned that they, at Rethinking Real Estate, make it a point to work closely with lenders like that in their area.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the absolute must-know points from Don and Susie at Rethinking Real Estate.
Okay, key takeaways. Number 1, May 25th, 2025. That's the deadline when non-permanent residents lose FHA eligibility.
Got it.
Number 2, this includes many people on legal work visas, like H-1B, L-101, and potentially some asylum seekers without specific paperwork.
Okay, quite broad.
Number 3, U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, green card holders, and citizens of Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, and Palau remain eligible.
That need the right proof.
Absolutely. Number 4, having the correct, valid documentation, like the Form I-551 for green card holders, is non-negotiable.
Super important.
And finally, number 5, these rules are tricky. Don't guess. Seek out trusted advice from experienced real estate pros and lenders, like Don and Susie suggest. Explore alternatives if FHA is no longer an option for you.
You know, listening to this, it's really clear that Don and Susie over at Rethinking Real Estate aren't just about transactions. They're putting out this crucial information, sharing that story about the refugees. It shows a real commitment to helping people understand the market.
Absolutely. It positions them as real advisors, especially in their Lake Taps community. They're clearly trying to provide that guidance people need, particularly when things get complicated like this.
Yeah. So for anyone listening who has more questions or feels like this might affect them directly, checking out Don and Susie's blog at rethinkingre.com seems like a really smart next step.
Definitely. They've laid the groundwork, and reaching out for personalized advice based on this info seems like the way to go.
For sure. Ultimately, understanding these kinds of shifts is just so critical when you're on that journey towards owning a home. Stay informed, definitely look at all your options, and just remember there are knowledgeable people out there, like Don and Susie, who want to help you navigate it all.
Well said. It's about being proactive and informed.
Maybe check out rethinkingre.com too. They probably have other useful insights on their blog for home buyers.